outside on Franklin Street now, where we've had the good fortune of designing and building 3 different houses here on the park. Of course, when I say we designed them, that means that we designed them. Here at 922, the most recent of the 3 that we've done, it was a really fun commission. The lot size is only 47 feet wide, as opposed to a lot of these lots are 50. But through careful siding of the house, we created a lot of earth around the property and let the park be the rest of the yard. Our client wanted a slight Spanish flavor on the house, and so we used these clinker bricks, which are about 120 years old, and did a pretty heavy, rough overgrout technique on the masonry, and came up with this flavor. Everything you see here is designed to be real and authentic in its pure sense. And so a clinker brick, what it does, it was an old structural brick. It wasn't intended to be seen, and that's why you see buildings like this in more rural environments in England and even in Denver. Downtown, you'll see these old clinker bricks, but very rarely in a finished residence. Typically, they would have been covered in stucco, which is why the Homes and Country Club have that awesome, nice strength of wall look in a stucco building that most people don't know how to replicate. Here, we wanted to create something that wasn't done at a time where there was that kind of budget in mind. We wanted to look like it was bricked and stopped, no stucco. Maybe even the stucco was sandblasted off at a later date to actually show the original structure of the house. And that's why we did the smooth cut stone. But all those details come together to create a house that's authentic in idea and form, which is why it will age. It gets better every single day. You'll notice that from the other 2 houses that flank this house. This house was done 3 years ago, Reinhardt, and then Cheryl's house over here, Karma, we did the year after that. All very different houses with different ideas, and so they weren't drawn differently just to be different. They were drawn differently because we had different clients each time, a different idea of what we were trying to do as a relationship to the park. We're inside a recently finished home in 922 South Franklin, where the commission was to create something, well, to quote our client, sick on the park. And as you can see when you look out the door here, as I move through the room, we're right on Washington Park on South Franklin. So the idea was to create something that was both on the park and somewhat removed from it for those times when you don't want all that foot traffic. Great sight line from the front door out. When we got in here, we haven't done a lot of clear story entry halls in the past, just from a scale perspective, but here the park commanded it. Our client wanted to be able to go up here on this perch that you see, which goes straight into the master suite, which is all park facing. So in the morning, whether you're one of the young children that will be raised in the house or the keeper of the home, you've got an instant park view when you get up in the morning. The whole panel detail that's in here was a play in scale. It stops just short of the subfloor, and it scales this clear story room down. We've got 10-foot ceilings on the main floor of this house and only 8 upstairs. But again, it breaks the scale down between the open public space and the more intimate, quiet, private space upstairs, and helps this clear story area from getting out of control. We did what I call parlor here in the front of the house that has a direct relationship to the park. Now there's a sight line we'll see in a minute that goes from this room into the kitchen. So when the clients are working in the kitchen, which is where they spend a lot of their time, they can have a direct view to the park, or they can step out of scene when they're working at the island and be away from the park. Our client actually found this painted in Aspen during the design process, and he sent me a clip of it over. We were designing that mantelpiece at the time, and it was just an awesome fit. So the dining room, again, has a direct relationship through to this room. You'll notice this wall here is framed very thick. And again, the idea is to create a sense of substantiality and permanence in the building. All these other interior walls here, again, were framed extra thick to imply bearing points that would have existed had this house been built without the aid of modern engineering. Those are the kind of things we do all the time to help the house feel more real and less like a false home that was thrown up sometime in the mid-90s trying to look old. Again, strong sightline from the park to this art wall here. Now I'm in the kitchen, and as we move around this way, you'll see how this whole space came together. I've got a direct sight line to the park where I would stand here working at my parent and row farm sink. Direct sight line from the prep sink also out to the park from the range. But at the same time, I have an opportunity to move into more intimate space and be away from the park. It's a tricky one. Every time we've done several homes on the park, and the commission's been different every time. And you really just have to pay attention to how the client wants to live with that kind of a view and that kind of public space directly out your front door. Everybody's different, so that our challenge is to make sure that we get it right for the client. So if you move over this way with the camera, you're going to see what I'm seeing, which is an absolute treat. Which is the view from the workspace straight through to the park. And now you get a view from the other side, across the kitchen. This space came together very square, and it was all based on the scale of those front two rooms. So we ended up with a kitchen space that was pretty deep. So we came up with this idea of a more square island that actually can seat 5 when these other 2 stools are pulled out. We're now on the other side of the kitchen. So half of the fun was siding the house towards the park, and the other half was creating space in the back that again gave you a more private environment. Through these French doors, we have a nice patio space and then an in-ground pool. It's really an oversized hot tub. Going from the kitchen this way, where we get an oversized square island to bring in the scale of the room, we designed this Chinese armoire, which is Sub-Zero integrated refrigerator and freezer. This is among many of the other different pieces that Chalet has designed, furniture-wise, just specifically for this house. So you'll not see this piece again, I wouldn't think, because it was designed specifically for this room and this house. Going this way, I call this the king seat over here, because from this particular seat, you take in the entire depth of the house through all the different layers we've created, and you have a direct sight line down the side of Veranda to the park. So you can sit here and see the activity in the hot tub, and also see the activity out in the park, and decide which direction you want to go. Really good space back here. The mantel was designed to be very strong. It's a rather large mantel, but in scale with the room and the 12-foot ceilings, and it's playing off of the custom hood that we did in a nickel finish across the room. There's an axis here, and with the strength of that hood, we needed a very strong mantel design over here to balance it out. Out back, we were dealing with a pretty small site here, so we didn't want to give any space away, which is almost always the case. And we created this little outdoor sitting area, which is on the northern part of the lot, facing due south. So year long, they should be able to enjoy pretty nice sunshine out here around this fireplace. The actual fireplace itself, again, I designed specifically for the house, and it's a solid masonry firebox with the old clinker brick and actually smooth cut sandstone mined out of Lyons just north of here. But this fireplace will burn wood if you want it to. And the general idea is, I'd love to see it burn wood. Most of our clients don't make the conversion, but a space like this with a real flame burning on a nice fall afternoon, there's nothing better than that. Over here, the pool is in the ground in this location. Dining space over here, and a little bit of room for the dog to run, which wasn't part of the initial program. The dog was a bit of a surprise about 2/3 of the way through the deal, so we had to make room for the dog.